Evening, welcome to Barmy Army fan camps after a really, really disappointing 2-0 loss away at Arsenal. It may well be one of the most defining points of our season. May well mean we finish fourth when all's said and done. I'm joined this evening by Fiona, Shane, Mark's making his debut, Jake and Jack. Jake, I've not seen you get as excited, but not in a positive way during a game. You seemed really frustrated during that game today.
Yeah, I do apologise for anyone who heard me absolutely screaming at the telly, but it's just, you get to the point now when you're watching the games, especially on TV, you look at the players and the individual mistakes, and I don't want to name drop, but there was positioning was ridiculous. The passing, they never went for the easy ball. It was always try something special, let's hit it upfield and hope. It was just, at the end of the day, from where we are, one of the best teams in the country, it's just decision making. And we've been taught lesson against Chelsea, we've taught us lesson against City, and in the third big game of the season, if you like, we've been taught another lesson.
But, Shane, it's a lesson we're not learning.
Yeah, and I know you said it towards the end of the game that how many times we pointed out after we'd played Arsenal, City, Chelsea at home, that we played them at home and we had them all three of them to come away, and from all three of those games we've come away with absolutely bugger all. And yet again, we're sat here after one of these matches on an absolute poor performance, and you have to start questioning it. Is it the opposition that we're playing? Are we just not up to it away from home? Is it the personnel we've got out injured? I know we've got quite a fair few injuries, but that can't always be the excuse for these kind of games. And
we've had these big games. We've had the games against the top three, as they may well finish the season. But Jack, for me, that Reading game at home, is that in some ways more disappointing than any result we've had against the top three?
What, the Reading game or Arsenal?
No, the Reading game. I'm just thinking the context of where this now leaves us after this Arsenal game. Are we also now, because the way I look at it, yes, the Arsenal game, the results against City, the results against Chelsea, the results against Arsenal tonight, they're a disappointment. They're a massive disappointment. But without that Reading result, that's salvageable.
Yeah, I mean, in the context of like the big picture of the season, the Reading loss now becomes massive because that is potentially the difference between us being level on points with Arsenal and not, and level on points with Arsenal with them having a far better goal difference than us. Then yeah, you look at it and it is a big loss. With that said, I think in all three games that we played against the top three, big three, however you want to call it, we should have done better. First of all, there were chances, at least tonight. There were chances against Chelsea. And the defending across all three games was absolutely abysmal. You could look at each and every one of them and say set piece goals, long ball goals, players out of position, just not good enough. So, yeah, and of course, every loss is big, and we should have done a lot better in all of them. We haven't.
And Fiona, in a way, so many of the issues we've had all season came back tonight. So chances, we couldn't convert. And we had, in the first half in particular, not so much the second half, first half we had some really clear chances that probably at least one of them we should have scored from. And in terms of their goals, certainly the first goal was handed to them on a plate. Second goal, our old defensive issues come back to bite us. There's no surprises in a loss like tonight, would you say?
No, I don't think so. The whole season, even when we've got a win, we haven't necessarily had a great performance, or there have been a few times where we say, yeah, that's been a good performance, but there hasn't been anything where you say overall, yeah, that's been a standout performance from the whole team. And it's great that you can still grind out a result, but you need a good a good performance to give yourself a bit of confidence when it goes into some of the big games. Yeah, you shouldn't need it, but we know we've got players that need a bit of confidence to play well, or that kind of thing. There hasn't been a time when you'd say we look like we'd easily score 6 or 7 against the teams that are not fighting for relegation. Even some of those that are fighting for relegation, we don't look like we could score many against. So I don't think it's then any surprise when we can't score against the likes of Arsenal or Chelsea or City, those kind of things. When we struggle against the weaker opponents. So yeah, I'd say overall not necessarily surprised. We could have got something out of it if we turned up, and we just didn't turn up at all.
And Mark, are we still able to think about this as, well, we're only 2.5 years in? Or has that excuse, has that gone?
No, we can still say it. We are still 2.5 years in. We can't use it, though, as an excuse all the time. Yes, this is our first proper full season in the WSL. We lost to the big three last year. We never got to play them all in the second, but we lost. This year, the record is slightly better. We drew with Chelsea at home. We beat Arsenal. We drew with City at home. But that's at home, and our home record is really good. And as you and Shane have said, away from home is where we seem to struggle. And we can't keep going, oh, we're an infant team. But it's a valid point.
Okay, it's a valid point to a point, I guess, because Jake, it wasn't that long ago, and I know it's probably skewed by the fixtures we'd had and whether we played home or away. We were top of the table. Now, maybe we can look at that and say, well, different number of games have been played by some teams. If we finish this season 4th, how disappointing is that? Or were we just in a false position and actually this is more accurate?
Well, it's funny because, if you'd asked me at the start of the season where you think we'd finish, I would have said 4th, and I would have been happy enough with that, just sort of closing the gap on the top 3. But, the start of the season we had was so amazing. It was fairytale like, we had so many people talking about how Casey Stoney had taken this team from nothing and got them to the top of the league, albeit it wasn't going to last. But we played with such confidence. The tactics were spot on. The players looked brilliant. We've not got the best team in the league by any stretch of the imagination. But as individuals, they were stepping up. They were doing so well. They were scrapping. They were scrapping for every ball. They were getting the results, even when it wasn't convincing. And now that team just disappeared. It feels like we are a shadow of that. The turn of the year came. We played the Chelsea game, and obviously that's not the worst performance we've ever seen, but it knocked us, and we've just been hit and miss since then. And yes, we might now go and beat some of the smaller teams, but the issue is, you can do it against Aston Villa and Birmingham and Spurs, but you get judged on games like tonight. And maybe we were all at our head in the clouds, being first and everything, and beating Arsenal and getting points against City and Chelsea at home. But yeah, it's just sent us crashing back down to earth, and it hurts, but it's the reality. I think having that extreme positive first half of the season, that's what sort of tarnishing the whole season, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, from a fan's perspective, we might have enjoyed it a bit more had it been the other way around, actually, and jumped up. Jack, people are going to point a finger at the squad and the depth, or maybe perceived lack of depth in light of the injuries. Of the injuries, and we've talked about them for weeks on end now, who for you are we missing the most right now?
I know it's been a very long time that she's been out, but probably Russo, simply because she's when she was playing, didn't play that much, unfortunately, but when she was playing, she looked like that number 9 proven goal scorer that we were looking for, that could, score from anything really, right foot, left foot, headers. So I'd look at her. With that said, I don't want to use this injury thing as a crutch too much, to be quite honest. Because you look at the injuries, most of them have been in forward positions, most of them. And yes, that hurts in terms of getting goals going forward. But our problems have been, since the start of the year anyway, have been mostly at the back. And the goals that we concede, whether it's against Reading or Chelsea or City or Arsenal, they've all been massive defensive errors. And you can't put that down to injury.
Shane, obviously Casey will assess, and at this point in the season, we know she's already planning for next season. How big a blow, though, could this be in terms of she can't sell Champions League potentially to incoming players?
It's massive. I mean, you go back to the start of this season when we knew that Tobin and Kristen were coming, and we debated, was that us signalling that we're going for Champions League? And clearly it is, because fourth in Casey's eyes is a failure for the season. Champions League's been the aim. I know there was obviously the debate that those two are only here for a year, so when they go, you've got to replace them with calibre enough that's going to compete in the Champions League, assuming you get there. But now you're in a position of, if you don't get there, you can't, like you said, you can't use that as an attraction to come to us. But also, Tobin and Kristen might also go, they're only here for a year, so if they go, who do you get in that's then capable of taking you to that level and getting you in it the season after? So it could potentially be absolutely massive for the season.
And obviously this makes the fans now question, Fiona, how many players do we need for next season?
That's the thing. You'd argue that we need a good 4 or 5.
Shane's on 7.
You need at least 4 or 5 in the starting 11. So we saw today Casey wasn't making any subs. You could argue that there might be an issue there with Casey. Not either believing the players are not good enough or not trusting them or whatever. So you'd add more there. We also need more leaders. So are we going to have to bring in a few more players because of that? I think there's going to be quite a long list. I think the list would be longer if we were in the Champions League, because of the amount of games you'd have. We need that more in depth as well. But there's definitely a few positions where you could argue quite easily that we need a better starting player. Some of the players we got would be fine for depth, but we just need a bit more quality on the pitch. Who is going to be our game changer today with the injuries that we have? We need a bit more in that. We can't be relying on just 2 or 3 players.
And that's the thing, that in terms of growth, for us to get to Champions League almost so quickly was almost a danger. And I suppose not having the depth of squad potentially that we would need for that kind of a campaign. And I'm not for a moment saying that, oh, let's not qualify. Obviously, we all want to do that. Mark was in particular looking forward to hitchhiking around Kazakhstan with Nat, for want of a better activity. Mark, I'm going to come to you with just one last question. Before I do, get ready, everybody, because this might be one of the toughest times I've asked you for player of the match. Mark, obviously, that's got to get put to a side tonight. Next game's huge, not just because they've got to get themselves focused. They're playing at Old Trafford.
Yeah.
They're playing at Old Trafford at the ungodly hour of 11:30. So any of the American fans that have been tuning in at times during this season are going to love that, particularly if they're on the West Coast. But is that potentially the one thing those girls need to get themselves back into gear. If they were going to Lee, would it just be more straightforward? Do they need that boost to say, right, come on, let's finish this season strongly?
If you take the result tonight, it's now done. It's in the books. It's a loss. We've done with it now. We move on to the next game. If any player can't get themselves up for playing at Old Trafford, then unfortunately, in my opinion, they're in the wrong profession. Old Trafford, for everyone in this call, is a very, very, very special place. It means a lot to us. And it means a lot to some of those girls as well, because some of those girls are United fans. And to play on at Old Trafford, for a lot of them, will probably be maybe some of the biggest things they've done in their career up to this point. Obviously, Tobin and Kristen have won World Cups and Olympics and all that. Jackie's obviously been to the Euro finals. But for domestic football, playing at Old Trafford for a lot of these is special. And, you look at Katie Zellen, she's a United fan. Tooney, RT United fan. They're playing at Old Trafford. Now, I mentioned it on the podcast on Wednesday. Playing at Old Trafford when it's empty, though, that's completely different to when it's full.
Yeah.
So, if they're not up for playing at Old Trafford, I honestly, I don't know what's going to do it.
And not all's lost, Mark. A 10-0 win puts us back in the hunt for third. Anyway, come on, I'm a United fan. You and I, Mark, we're used to the days. Oh, I get this. You come on the first time and you start coming back at me. Very nice. Yeah.
You said this is the first time.
You and I are old enough to remember Fergie time. So we will always hold on to that nugget of hope. Even tonight, in the 91st minute, I'm thinking, we get one, we come.
Yeah. But third is, yes, I'm a red optimist. I will always see United winning and doing well. Third is still in our hands. We're still third. They've closed the gap to 3 points and they've got a game in hand. Yeah, but it's football. Anything can happen in a game of football. We all know that. But if we go and beat West Ham, they can slip up, but we have to win our games. We can't concentrate on league positions or anything else. We have to concentrate on us.
Absolutely. And Mark is an absolute red optimist. He still thinks we can win this game tonight. Right. Last question. Last question. Player of the match. And you cannot, we've not even mentioned this, you cannot pick the referee for actually sending a player off tonight. It happened and it was one of theirs. Player of the match, one name. Let's do this as quickly as we can. Jake.
Didn't do a lot wrong. Honor.
Jack.
Your nephew picked the absolute right one. I'm sorry. I'm just going to go with Beth Mead because she did all she could in order to help us win.
Yeah, all credit to me though. She is a red. Fiona.
I'm really struggling now. I don't know. Yeah, I'd probably go with Lucy Stan. Wasn't up to her best performance, but I don't know. Nobody was great.
Shane.
I'm with Jake. I'm going to go with Honor.
Go on, Mark.
With the boys, Honor.
Well, Jack's saying Beth Mead. So was your nephew. Okay.
Yeah,
right.
but
Honor wins.
But I'm picking a United player. If we're picking an overall player, then I might agree with Jack.
Okay, if we're picking an overall player, it's not going to be a United player. Thank you very much for joining me. Honor wins that, but I think, quite frankly, that won't give her any joy. Thank you very much for joining me this evening. We're going to be back next week after a Saturday morning game against West Ham. We'll see what that brings. Thank you, Shane, Mark, Jake, Jack, Fiona. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you again next time. Cheers. Bye-bye.